I hope to meet your expectations, but I feel like I've been in a therapy against stress. You know, when colleagues were speaking, I was so relaxed, thinking, well, we are all in the same boat. Others are also not satisfied with their progress and and speed. So also another feeling that I had was like, you know, we are twins with Latvia. Actually, I'm grateful for the presentation because we can copy-paste. I mean, we are in a very similar situation, in very similar discussions, in very similar political decisions. And then I thought, we are twin sisters, a little bit jealous of two cousins in the north because they are somehow progressing maybe faster, maybe more visibly, but there is something that we envy for, but also it's an encouragement for us to try and find this secret how to make the progress faster and in a more constructive way. And it's good to have somebody to look up to. So I hope you share my feeling. But today I'm going to talk about probably the context in Lithuania from the ministerial perspective, or through the perspective of the division and department I work in. And my division is within the lifelong learning department. So the unit, which we call teacher activity unit, is actually the user of teacher education product, because we want teachers who step into the career to stay there, to be motivated, to be competent, and to be forward thinking and forward looking. So all initial teacher education reform in Lithuania is very important for schools, because we are in very similar situations with generation of teachers that has been trained and has been working in and the speed of all the changes in societies and in other sides of our life, economy, demography, culturally, was so fast that this generation of teachers can't catch up. And it's very important that we all work towards providing relevant education to future generation of teachers. But when I think about our context, I just think that if anybody asked me what is our key challenge, I think that our key challenge is inability to manage diversity and uncertainty. And we always argue about things that are already real life, and which sample of diversity should prevail, we don't know. And somebody who takes up the leadership or is given the leadership always wants to represent a sample that is part of it. It's not the whole of it. So again, with all this diversity, we have lots of uncertainty, because we don't know which leadership will prevail, we don't know which trend will prevail, we don't know how to deal with that and how to free the space for all this different context, different expectations, different ideas. And I will start with some statistics, because anyway we have to somehow have evidence for decisions and things that we discuss about. And later I will share the challenges in terms of the political decisions that we go forward. So again, I am sure that our colleagues from Latvia, Estonia will again see themselves in the statistics that comes from Lithuania. So we have very I would say drastic, though the numbers or percentages of drop are small, but still, within the education system, it's a drastic change. So the numbers of students are dropping fast. So if you can't see, this is from 2014 to 2017. So the number of students in schools, these are school students, not university students, dropped by nearly 3%. The ratio of student-teacher population is as small as in Latvia and Estonia. So we have regions where we have 6 students per teacher, and we want to have decent salaries for teachers, but they don't have work to do. And taxpayers, again, they are right to question, why do we pay these people if they don't have a job to do? So we have somehow to consolidate and manage the situation. And in some regions, we have 13 students per teacher, and it's still a very small number. So again, if you look geographically, we have big cities, and migration is not only across the border, migration is towards big cities. So Vilnius is suffocating and struggling, and they have a difficult situation with big classrooms, but again, you can't force populations to move to make ideal ratio of young populations and teacher populations. So this is a big challenge. And the recently introduced reform of teacher pay is actually for trying to deal with this situation. We are trying to look for tools how to pay teachers decent salary, but make sure that they give value to the schools, to the communities, to the students that they work in. And it's not an easy thing to do, and there are again very broad range of offered solutions. But again, this year we introduced finally the full pay for the teachers. I still take it as an experiment, because those who come from Lithuania in this audience, they know how the situations made managers' life difficult and some teachers' life also difficult. It's a change, it's a huge change. What will happen? Again, we are not very sure. It might solve the teacher-student ratio problem, but will it solve the quality problem? Will it solve student support problem? I am not sure, but we will see. And again, the network of schools is huge. The size of schools is really diverse. We have very small schools where we have about 100 students, and we have huge schools that we have nearly 1,000 students. So again, teacher workloads are different, and school manager's job is also very difficult. If you have such a small school with all the support and deputy principals, you are a king. But if you have a big school with very diverse interests, with very diverse students and diverse parents, and you don't have all this student support that you can cover with your budget and finances, then you have a much more difficult situation. And again, speaking about the teacher population, we don't have young people in the schools. So again, when I speak about diversity, I speak about diversity of generations. And in schools, we have a distorted reality in terms of diversity of generations. Because I often say this, and teachers are angry, I know when I say this, but we still have the situation that we have grandparents and grandchildren in the schools. We lack this generation of parents in schools, but we also lack older sisters and brothers in schools. And the mix would be healthy, but it's very difficult to bring this healthy mix. On the other hand, in all societies, we have now a longer years of work. So teachers are the same people who are entitled to work till 62. And we speak about aging teachers in schools. They have the right to stay there because they have to work for their retirement pension. So what do we do with this? With the shrinking student population and shrinking network of institutions and the same number of teachers who have the right to work in schools. Do we have other offers for them? I don't know. This is a very difficult situation. So when universities say that there is not enough funding for teacher education places in their higher institutions, who can guarantee that we give the payment and give them work when they graduate? Yes, I agree to the arguments when people say that, but it's good for the society. Everybody who's trained in education is a good parent. Yes, I agree. But what's of it for schools and the school leaders who need young teachers motivated and competent? Will they go there? So who is responsible for that? It's a very difficult discussion, both with communities but also within the ministry. So this is the challenging situation. So again, if you look at this graph, it's disheartening because the number of students in initial teacher education is falling down. We recently have done the exercise with MOSTA for guests from other countries. It's the research institution that deals with analysis in higher education, but now we employed them for school education as well. And very rough estimate by them, it's a very complicated instrument. We are happy that we could use European Commission expertise for that. And we discovered that England and Ireland are fantastic in forecasting teacher population. And they shared their tools, instruments that are interactive, how you use demographic statistics, economic development statistics, and forecast what's happening in education. We haven't done that before, but now we are starting to look into broader context. So the rough estimate is, I might be not exactly correct, but the rough estimate is that about 1,500 in initial teacher training would be okay for our demand per year. But now we have this year about 650 places that were funded by the budget. We are in this situation where initial teacher education institutions or higher education institutions have to rethink. It's not only the ministry or politicians that have to rethink. Universities and colleges also have to rethink the whole package of their offer. So also in teacher training. What is, for me, good sign, I don't know whether you agree or not, but you can see that college line is going up. And this year is the first year when college teacher training was chosen by the students in numbers slightly higher than universities. Maybe it was because of all this mess that students or young people trusted colleges more than universities. I don't know. But again, we have to see what happens next year and how we deal with the situation further. So what has happened politically? That we had, just 2 years ago, we had 8 universities and 7 colleges that trained teachers. And then there was a political decision that we need 3 national centers, and there were universities appointed to lead initial teacher education. So now we have lots of discussions with colleagues from these universities, and namely it's Vilnius University, Vytautas Magnus University in Kaunas, and Šiauliai University in the northern western part of Lithuania. And for these 3 national centers, it's a huge task to finally manage the whole situation with initial teacher training. And I'm really grateful for their patience, because what we need here is patience. This is how I feel. And also to slow down the fast horses that were actually put into the cart by the politicians. So another challenge is we are rethinking not only teacher education but also the curriculum. Unfortunately, my colleagues from that division are not here, but they shared with me their thinking, how they would like to go with a curriculum change or curriculum renewal. So again, it's a little bit maybe too visionary, because you can't see here subjects. But recently, and all data that we have nationally shows that it's not subject teaching that is the problem, no matter we lack in PISA results. But it's the feeling of the students and the parents that schools meet their expectations socially, culturally, and community-wise. And that's why the thinking is that we definitely want to give priority to collaborative learning approach. Our teachers, remember, they are of the generation, me and slightly older, so they were taught in the way that teacher is teaching, students learn without much collaboration or cooperation in groups or in pairs. So we want to see that in schools. We want to see also the logics of progress. We want to make sure that parents and students understand how their progress is visible, how their progress is measured, how their progress helps them to progress faster, and how do they get feedback, and what is the criteria of a good student. We, in 2015, I think, we finally agreed on what is a good school. We still haven't agreed what is a good teacher. And students want to know what is a good student, because they are different and they all are stars these days. They all are perfect students. But why teachers are unhappy about them? We have to find the answer, and to convince parents and students that teachers are happy about every student in the class. So variety of the environments again. Our schools are still not as modern as in Finland or probably Estonia or Latvia. We have good schools, and I see Virginia who once offered an opportunity to visit her school, and they have a fantastic environment that built on the top of the building. So schools are changing. Teachers, I'm not sure, maybe during lunch break we can talk how teachers feel about that environment, because it changes their culture. And are they happy about that? Can they deal with that? It's another thing for the school directors to manage. So again, coming back to the initial teacher education, these are the challenges that are very, very often the cause of disagreement in many different work groups and in many different ministerial groups. So what should student-teacher ratio be? Because again, we have expectations that teachers in the region have a place of work, but we have the situation when they have very few students to work with. And also we have this inherited inertia of training teachers in a very narrow subject area. So again, if we want to give them more work in terms of teaching hours, and we want to widen their area of work in terms of subjects, we can't, because they are trained in a very narrow subject area. If they are not competent in the other area that we want them to teach students, then we have to give them support, and it's again costly. So teachers in working age, teachers in schools, need as much investment as teachers that will be the new generation that are coming through universities. Another very difficult discussion is on initial teacher education offer. So again, colleagues here from universities and colleges will probably agree with me that though we have this agreement on the model, we finally agreed last year that we want diversity in initial teacher training. We want different kind of formats to offer to young people who decide to come into teacher profession, like not only concurrent but also consecutive, and also professional studies. Also probably giving teachers an opportunity to get a module of a study course to expand their competence in other areas. But again, it has become, this diversity, a burden for the universities, because they have to finally sort out the packages of offer for teacher education. And another area that actually needs investment but also progress is educational science and research. Again, my colleagues from higher education probably will be able to give many examples when educational science and research was diminished among other sciences and researches. We still have this educational culture that some subjects are more prestigious than others, and educational science was seen as applied science, and if people wanted to go for doctoral studies, it was very difficult to get both financing and also encouragement, because it's not real science, it's some kind of strange science. So Finland here is an example where I think you have a very healthy approach today, yeah. But you recognize the history, yes. So we are still in that. The good news is that ministry now is really willing to invest in all these challenges to make progress, and we do plan to have targeted financing from structural funding, and it's reserved that it is reserved for universities and initial teacher training, but again there are other things that actually don't allow us to move faster. But I won't expand on that. So in Lithuania, with all this context, we also try to make teachers' career slightly less stressful in terms of requirements as well. So with this demographic situation, with this school network reform, we get the feedback from schools and school managers that they started already today lacking different subject teachers. Again, I know that everybody is frustrated by media and ministry arguing about is it oversupply or is it shortage, but I responsibly can say, and nobody will convince me otherwise, nationally we have oversupply. We have thousands of people trained as teachers working elsewhere, not because they're not interested in teaching profession, but because the conditions are not good, the salary is not attractive, and there are no places in schools for a decent law with a decent salary. And whether anybody is looking at how to attract them back, I'm not sure. I think this is some kind of overlooked area today. But within the qualification requirements for teachers and to make school managers' life easier, we say that we are willing to untighten, or what's the English word, the requirements, and those who are really looking towards teaching career, they can start teaching in schools. But what we want to see responsible school managers who make sure that these people get a chance to get full qualifications, while our legislature says in 2 years' time. So actually, if the school director makes a decision that they need a teacher, and that teacher is really good for that school, they can employ them, but they have to provide all the possible resources, time resources and financial resources for these people to get up in their competence, so that they are not dissatisfied teachers because they can't teach according to the expectations. So what we've done in terms of initial teacher training, as I said, in our discussions last year, they were very intense. We decided that finally we agree. We want people to come to teaching from different ages, from different motivations. So after secondary education, yes, go and study if you really want to teach, to be a teacher. while you are in the studies, in other subjects, in other fields, in other departments, you still can pick up teacher qualification, and these are called, help me, concurrent or consecutive? Consecutive studies, through consecutive studies. After you've graduated at university, you still can come. You have professional studies. And when you start with non-formal education, working with children, you have the right to formalize your competence and get recognition of your qualifications through non-formal and self-learning route, if you want. So all this that is listed as the roads to the teacher profession actually goes down to the new teacher education centers. We agreed nationally, but how you implement that and how you provide these opportunities, what package do you give for all these roads? Or you pick up one package or one road, or you offer everything. I think we still have a need for a discussion how these three centers network, whether they compete, whether they cooperate, or whether they agree on the areas they go into. And I have 5 minutes left. So what we are looking forward to from higher education institutions that are still in initial teacher training, and especially from these three national centers, is rethinking of candidate selection, new study programs, and finally base everything on the national forecast. Try to do your own research if you need it. If you go regionally, look into the region. We have all the national statistics at your hand, but do your work. So this is what the expectations are. And the targets that we are now trying to somehow promote with teacher training universities are these, very roughly, but it's not for nothing that I made these two circles bigger. Quality of initial teacher education is the key target for us, but as you know the saying that education can't be better than a teacher, so initial teacher education also can't be better than a university teacher. So university teachers' competences also need attention, if you want so, because I am sure that within all this change of our society, culture, and expectations, university teachers also have a responsibility to stop and think sometimes, and maybe stop with inertia, but go towards something else. And I really love that I came across on Facebook. Probably you've seen that. But these are the expectations from the teacher. So who can help the teacher to become a perfect teacher? If they are in schools, they want to be this, and they are expected to be this. So we have to help them with the foundation. And those bricks are the universities. You really have to lay those bricks, or help us lay these bricks. So that's all from me, and I will give you lunch work. So fill in the gaps if you had questions, and when we come back, maybe you fill the gaps during the lunch, and after lunch we will have a chance to answer the questions that still stayed after you talked to the colleagues. Okay?
Thank you, Vilma.